Hey folks, welcome to the channel. I'm really excited about today's video. I finally show you the build where I do my knife for the challenge against Dave at Evader Knives. If you haven't seen the video where I make the Damascus, go watch that one. I'll put a link up here. Go watch that one first where I issued the challenge and made the Damascus. In this one, I'm going to show you the knife that I built. Have you guys please go down to the comments, comment on this build, go watch Dave's build, comment on his video, let us know which one you like. Okay, remember, there's no winner or loser. You guys watching both videos, that's the real win for us. So, without further ado, I want to show you guys my design. Yes, I'll be doing a Quillion Dagger. So let's get right into it, guys.
This baby's going to be 16 inches tip to pommel. Obviously, it's a dagger, so it's going to have 4 bevels. We're going to have some parts to do on the lathe. We're going to have a fluted handle, maybe with some wire inlay. Pommel, screw-on pommel. This is going to be probably, most definitely, my most complicated build yet.
The first thing I want to do is isolate the steel for the tang and for the ricasso, because those flares are going to be at the edge, so I want to get the steel I need for the tang first. This dagger was much longer than the amount of steel that I had, so I couldn't just cut it out. I did have to forge as much as I could to save on steel. I also didn't want to thin out the blade too much. Because it was a dagger and it was going to get 4 bevels, I wanted the center to have a bit of meat to it, so to try to keep that as close to 3/16 as I could. Now I'm getting some length with the press and just putting in kind of a point. So this will give me a little more length, and also it's thickening up the blade a little bit. And don't worry, the rebar is getting cut off. That's just where I was holding it before, and I've got it reversed right now. So here goes my first attempt at putting in the flares. This ends up not working too well, but I gave it a shot. I'm trying to spread out the steel that I used to make the flares, and it's just not going where I want it. At this point, I'm just looking at it, contemplating what I'm going to do. I'm just not happy right now.
So here it is after the initial forging. So I put the pattern on it. There's already some things I want to change. First off, the little flares here did not turn out well, which is fine because I actually have enough steel to redo those. I'm actually going to make the blade just a little bit thicker until it tapers here. And I don't like, now that I see it cut out, the tang is way too small, which is fine. I kind of figured that, so I have the steel to make that a little thicker. And I want the ricasso a little thicker as well.
I was really happy with the Damascus on this one. While I was grinding, I actually kind of forgot it was Damascus. No inclusions, no nothing, and it's so fine you can't see the pattern. Can't see it yet.
So I put the pattern on it. I filed out the flares here, so those look pretty good right now. Still pretty thick, so now we're going to take it to the surface grinder and grind that down, and then we'll put our bevels in. I've got this all surface ground. Next operation, I want a fuller in the very center of the blade that goes from right above the flares about 7 inches, and this will, as the blade tapers to the front, it will kind of just disappear. So we're going to do that with a ball end mill and take it down the blade. Let's go. Fuller even on both sides. This was all filed out. I also milled the shoulders, so looks pretty good. Kind of looks like a rocket ship. Now to put the bevels in. Putting the bevels in this knife was certainly the most stressful thing. It's such a narrow blade. There's such an easy propensity to put a facet on it or change the angle you're holding it at. Plus they're really long, and there are 4 of them. So lots of challenges on this one. Having a fuller in the center of the blade actually helps quite a bit in case you oops a little bit. You don't have to meet at a perfect line. So the fuller had a couple of uses here. After 3 or 4 hours, I was pretty happy with the blade. It was pretty nice and even, nice and flat on the sides. Now we're ready for the heat treat. Of course, the blade's already been normalized. It's gone through some thermal cycling, and now we're doing the quench. It was actually pretty uneventful. Things went well, no warps at all. Although I speed this up in the video, you really need to make sure you leave your blade in the oil for at least 10 seconds, usually more like 20. You'll notice at the end here, I almost dropped it. The blade was tempered at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours twice. Now it's time to do the final grinding. I started this at 80, went up to 120, and kind of left it there just because I was nervous and didn't want to screw it up. I wanted to grind the bevels down so that the edges were about 10 thousandths thick, and they looked pretty good. Here it is after final grinding. I'm really thrilled with how this turned out. No major flaws in the grind. It's really even. No facets. And I love how this tapers to a point here, this fuller, and the same on the other side. So exactly the way I wanted it to turn out. So everything's going really well so far. Really fine edge. So looking good. I got some hand sanding to do, but before I do that, I thought I would get started on the guard. So this one I'm going to turn in the lathe. It'll be my first big lathe project of turning this. So I'm going to take some measurements, and basically I'm going to leave this center part. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch stainless. And I'm going to measure this center part, and then I'm just going to take some measurements on these areas and then scribe some lines. Actually, I'll take it down to diameter, then scribe some lines and see if I can replicate that. This is my first major project on the lathe, and I'm no machinist, guys, so take it easy on me. I'm sure I'm doing some dumb things, but I had fun. It's a really fun tool to use, so I'm sure I'll be doing a lot more on the lathe in the future. I'm pretty familiar with the mill and using the mill with my DRO. And, you know, I'm a math guy. I like precision, and using the lathe was a little different. You kind of had to get the feel for it and keep going and kind of getting it closer and closer. It's not a precision instrument, at least the way I'm using it, without a DRO. I will say, I think I got this pretty close on the lathe. I don't see any difference between the left and right Quillion. I think they both look pretty identical. So there's the somewhat finished guard. I haven't cut the ends off just in case I have to put it back in the lathe. Right now, I want to mill the center part flat. So that's why I left this. I didn't shape this at all because I want to be able to put this in the vise and it'll kind of lock it in. Then I'm going to shave off the top. That'll give me a flat section, flip it over, and mill the top, and that'll give me a nice flat section. So let's get her done. So there's the guard all milled. The only thing that's not milled is the slot. Before I do the slot, I want to fully sand the blade so I get a perfect thickness on the ricasso. If you want some tips on hand sanding, go watch last week's Triple T video. That gives some good hand sanding tips, and I really used a lot of those in hand sanding this blade. Now I'm milling the slot in the guard, getting ready to put it on the knife. Since the Quillions were on a different plane than the face of the guard, I had to prop it up on this 1-2-3 block, but that seemed to work to grind it out. So there's the guard all fit on the knife. It fits nicely, no gaps. It's just dry fit, hammered on right now. I'll get it off, but I got some more sanding and file work to do on this, but I love it. I love the way it looks. I think it looks really cool. So now it's time to do this spacer here. You'll notice that this is an oval and the handle is going to be round. So I have to transition from an oval to a round here. So what I'm going to do is take this, turn it on the lathe to be this diameter down to this, and then I'll just take this guard off, put it on top, trace it on the big side, and then just use the grinder just to shape that down. So I think that'll work. Now I just got to turn this on the lathe. Take some measurements, mark it on here, and turn it on the lathe. I ended up using a longer piece of stock to do the spacer. I don't have a cutoff tool for my lathe, and I really need to get one, and I needed to cut this on the bandsaw, so I needed it to be longer to lock it into the bandsaw. So I've got the spacer all done. You can see it's round on one side, and then it's got the oval to match the guard. You'll notice I put holes for line-up pins, which are exactly the same as the ones here, so it should line up nicely. It's been sanded to 220, but I'll match it and sand it all down later. Now on to the handle. So originally I wanted to use this maple burl dyed kind of purplish. My worry is that it's just a little too busy, and when I put the flutes in it and the wire, there's just too much going on. So I think I was going to use African blackwood just because I love that wood. I still may, but I'm going to try, I like the red. I think red would look really good here. So I'm going to try this bloodwood. and I'm going to be turning it on the lathe. So I think I'm going to start there and see what I can get out of that. And who knows, maybe it's just a test piece. Let's give it a try. I'm sure the machinists are just cringing right now seeing me turn some wood on my metal lathe. And yes, this made a huge mess, and it took me a while to clean this up. I remember shop class back in middle school and using the wood lathe, and I remember how fun it was, and now I remember why. It is really fun. So I finished doing the basic contours of the handle on the lathe. It's thicker than normal because the flutes are going to be concave flutes. So that's why this will be the top point. I've got it rigged up here. This is the jig I use to do wire wrapped handles, but I'm using this as a little guide because I need to put a grid system on here so that I can do the fluting and get it perfect. So that's why these little markers on here. So now I'm just going to put a grid pattern on here so I can get that done. There. So now the way you do these is to draw a line from this one, from here to this corner, to this corner, to that corner, and it will make a spiral all the way around to the other side. That's the next thing. Once I had the grids marked on here, I just connected corner to corner, and that gave me those lines. Now, a bunch of filing just to take these out. So it's actually every second line is going to be the valley, and the other one is going to be the point. So it's going to be a lot of work. So it's starting to come together. I got the initial filing on the handle done. It still needs a little work. It's pretty rough right now, but these edges here will be flattened a bit because that's where the wire is going to go. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Now, the pommel. Let's go back to the lathe. Sorry, folks, I lost the footage for turning the pommel on the lathe, but you get the idea. So it's time to do the channels for the wire inlay. So I'm going to flatten these out with a file and then kind of figure out how I'm going to center that channel. And yeah, let's do it. I tried a few things to get the channels for the wire. I ended up landing on using a kind of like a carpet knife to mark or score that line in the center, then went back with a marking pencil and just kind of scratched through that kind of cut line to make it a little deeper so that my file would travel nicely, and then ended up using these Nicholson needle files to make the channel, and that worked well. As you can see, this sure was time consuming. Ended up taking probably 2 or 3 hours to get all these channels filed into the handle. But I think they came out really, really nice. So I've got the channels for the wire all filed out. Now I need to drill some holes where the wire will go into on either end. So I'm just going to drill 1/16 holes here, and then there'll be little channels on either end to go into that. So they'll get hidden once the pommel and guard are pressed up tight. There are the holes. I think we're good to go. Okay, we're ready to do the twist for this wire. So the way I'm going to do this, I have my steel wire here. I'm going to double it. I'm just going to straighten it out here. I think I have probably more than I need. Yeah. So I'm going to hook it here. Yeah, it's way more than I need. So I'm just gonna kind of crimp this end, twist it. Then I'm gonna hook it on the drill and give it a little spin. Okay, and this, from experience, will want to crimp up on you if you try to take it off. So you need to wind it around something. Here. There we go. So we've got our twisted wire.
At this point, I've already fully finished the handle, sanded it to 1,000. Now I'm using contact cement, putting it in that groove where the wire goes. So doing one groove at a time, filling it full of contact cement, crimping the end of the wire so it fits in the hole, and then wrapping it around, crimping it, and putting it in the other side. Sorry guys, I should have zoomed out the camera a little bit. It's kind of hidden what I'm doing, but I'm wrapping the wire around, and then I'm taking a toothpick and just kind of jamming it in that hole with some glue just to make sure that that wire is solid and will not come out of the hole. We're so close now. I'm doing final buffing of the fittings, getting ready. I've got some white compound on my buffer. Then I go to the buffing wheel. I get these nice and shiny, ready for the final fit up.
Thanks, folks. Hope you enjoyed this build. I had a great time doing it. It was super fun. I can't wait to watch Dave's build and see what he's come up with. If you want to see more Throwdown Damascus challenges, stay tuned. And for those of you that have YouTube channels and you want a challenge, come talk to me. I'm thrilled with the way this turned out. I can't wait to do more builds like this. So guys, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.